This video was not made for kids. It contains occasional swearing, so viewer discretion is advised. As I've said before, I welcome civilized/rational discussion in my comments section. To be absolutely crystal clear, while I may not like the Thomas add-on myself, I don't have a problem with people who do like it. But I ask everyone, not just fans of the add-on, to respect other people's opinions. It may be intended more for kids, and I know damn well that no one was forcing me to buy it, but those facts do not make it immune to criticism. I am not having a go at Dovetail Games, nor am I raging for views. Instead, all I'm doing in this video is speaking my mind on something in a game that I'm passionate about, and providing valid reasons for why I feel the way that I do. The subject of today's review may just be the most baffling and, dare I say, controversial add-on ever released by Dovetail Games. Despite initial hesitation against the idea, I decided to take one for the team and bought the Thomas add-on for Trainz in World 5 so you don't have to. This add-on was first announced as the supposedly grand reveal to close out Dovetail Games' farcical season of reveals in December 2024. I remember a lot of people, myself included, being mighty pissed off at this announcement, given just how much DTG were trying to hype it up. It felt more like a slap in the face than a grand reveal, but regardless of Doesn't Test Games' silly antics, the Thomas pack wasn't released until the 20th of March 2025, only 2 days after the Cardiff City network, and 5 days before Zwolle to Groningen. Surely I'm not the only one who thinks it's bizarre for Dovetail to release all these add-ons so close together. The proper name for this DLC is Thomas and Friends Visit to the West Somerset Railway. While that may be accurate, I think it's too clunky, and that something like Thomas's Somerset Adventure, or Thomas Goes to Minehead, or hell, even Thomas and the Evil Diesel, would be more suitable. Regardless of its title, this DLC costs a staggering $36 New Zealand dollars at full price. I dare say there's probably licensing fees involved, but even so, $36 is still quite steep for a Train Sim World add-on, especially when it's just a rolling stock pack and not a full-on route. Since this pack is aimed at a younger audience, one wonders how many parents will actually be willing to fork out the money. Besides the blue E2 himself, you also get Diesel the Class 08, along with the Troublesome Trucks and Thomas's coaches, Annie and Clarabel. I always thought Diesel was an odd choice for a second Sudrian locomotive to include alongside a Thomas. Personally, I would rather have seen another steam locomotive like Edward, James, Percy or Toby included instead. In any case, Diesel's model in TSW is noticeably different from the realistic Class 08 that we've had in the game since June 2019, when she was first released as part of the BR Heavy Freight pack. The Class 08 has since been recycled, repainted, and resold in 3 subsequent routes. Make of that what you will. The routes in question are the Tees Valley Line, Blackpool Branches, and West Coast Main Line Preston to Carlisle. Dovetail made the questionable decision to give Thomas and Diesel simplified controls. They describe this as being as intuitive and accessible as possible for everyone to enjoy. It's a rather ballsy move to use the word everyone, if you ask me, since I highly doubt every single player is going to enjoy the dumbed down controls. I certainly don't. To be fair, I understand the idea of simplifying controls to make it easier for newcomers to understand, but even then, Dovetail still took things a bit too far, to the point where it's almost like they're taking the piss out of their own game. Either that, or completely missing the point of their own game. The dumbed down controls wouldn't be so annoying if you also got versions of Thomas and Diesel with more realistic controls. As it stands, the controls are even more simple than a lot of the electric multiple units in the game, and that's really saying something. Not helping the situation is the fact that, while both engines have fully detailed cab interiors, none of their control levers are actually animated, so you can't drive them by any means other than the basic keyboard or controller commands. Thomas and Diesel also have very unrealistic physics, and handle more like Hornby models instead of real steam or diesel locomotives, although their top speed is nowhere near as high as those Hornby pocket rockets. In any case, I thought the whole point of Trainz Sim World was to immerse the player in a world where you could leave the driver's seat and walk around, complete with very realistic driving experiences on the locomotives. While you can, of course, get up out of the driver's seat on Thomas or Diesel, the overly simplified controls on these two Sudrians completely breaks the immersion. Quite bizarrely, the gameplay options in this pack include a story mode of sorts, with narration provided by Mark Moraghan himself. I don't know whether to find that cool or strange. In any case, he was the narrator for the official show between seasons 17 and 21, an era with which I'm not familiar, especially after season 18. As for what my favourite season of the show is, that honour goes to season 5, which was made 10 years before the switch to full CGI. Thinking back to the TSW story, Mark does an okay job at voicing the characters, but the story itself is not my cup of tea, to say the least. Incidentally, Mark also does the voiceover for the tutorials. I tried both Thomas and Diesel's tutorials and found that, for some reason, Thomas's eyes follow you as you walk around. The tutorials have clearly been designed for people who have never played TSW before, and they don't really teach the experienced players anything they don't already know. Apart from when I've played Grand Theft Auto 5, I haven't much interest in story modes for video games. I did see that DTG included a new timetable with Thomas and Diesel running normal services on the West Somerset Railway, so you're not restricted to only using the Sudrians in story mode. But the problem with that new timetable is that no other locomotives layer onto it, not even the Class 47 and Class 09 that come with the route. You can also use the free roam mode to run Thomas and Diesel on other routes in Trainz Sim World 5. And further credit where it's due, at least these models are not based on what we see in that unholy abomination of a 2D reboot. But disappointingly, the rolling stock included in this pack can't be coupled to any existing stock in the game, which means that, ironically, Thomas and Diesel are not really useful, in a sense. Before I get to the conclusion, I'd like to go over a few random observations I made while trying out the Sudrian rolling stock. Thomas's chuffing sounds are exactly what I remember hearing in the classic seasons, and his face changes as you blast the whistle. Meanwhile, DTG missed an opportunity to provide a second variant of this brake van dressed up as Bradford. The brake van doesn't have any interior details, so the window spaces are just black voids. And for some reason, there's no guard's compartment modelled aboard Clarabel, despite the fact that she's supposed to have a guard on board. Anyone else remember the episode from Season 1 called Thomas and the Guard? Weirdly, I don't dislike the Thomas add-on as much as I thought I would. But even then, the fact that this is still a real add-on absolutely fucking baffles me. DTG could have at least executed the idea in a much better way than how they actually did it. For starters, they should not have simplified the controls as much as they did, and instead of modelling a TV series styled Thomas, and a CGI era model at that, they should have based the model on one of the real locomotives that's dressed up for Day Out with Thomas events, like Mainline Steam's Bagnall tank number 2475, although this particular example is on 3-foot 6-inch gauge. Come to think of it, the decision to build the Thomas add-on around the West Somerset Railway unintentionally highlights the glaring lack of other heritage railways in TSW. Instead of building the Thomas add-on around an existing route, and a fairly old route at that, I think it would have been a better idea to make a proper Island of Sodor route, be it the entire island's rail network or even just the branch line from Elsbridge to Farquhar and Enofa Quarry. If DTG were going to do that, then I would want them to add Season 4 style models of Thomas, Percy, Toby, Daisy and Mavis. And perhaps they could also include Bertie the Bus and George the Steamroller. Regarding the concept of steam locomotives in Trainz Sim World as a whole, I'm still of the opinion that DTG went about implementing it in the worst way possible. They essentially quietly dumped the concept after only giving us 4 steam locomotive classes, 2 steam era routes, and leaving a lot of issues with the locomotives and routes unfixed. I don't expect anyone from DTG to watch this video, but I may as well say this anyway. People's negative reaction to the Steam era content, and by extension the Thomas add-on, does not mean that we don't want to see steam locomotives in TSW ever again. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas is all we'll ever get for more steam locomotives in this game. I suspect that the Thomas add-on may still sell decently well amongst the more casual players, even though the price is very steep for what you get. I agree with those who believe that Thomas has no place in Trainz Sim World 5, especially when the controls are dumbed down to the point of farce, not to mention DTG modelling TV series style characters, which clash pretty badly with the realistic locomotive models in the game. I may not be a fan of the Thomas add-on myself, and I think its very existence will only sour Dovetail Games' reputation even further, but that doesn't change the fact that Thomas the Tank Engine still holds a special place in my heart.